Hello, I'm Brian Critchell and I'm here today with Mario Lopez-Areu, Senior Policy Advisor on Pensions at the CBI. Mario, thank you for inviting us.
My pleasure.
Now, let's talk about the public-private sector debate. Public sector bad, private sector good is a current mantra, somewhat misplaced in my view, but it's highly damaging. A majority of current public service pensions are stated by the sector itself and by those that work in the sector, we have a lot of those on our communities, pensions managers, as being quite modest. Well, they should know they're in the business, they manage those pensions, but the media and the taxpayers are picking up at the other end of the spectrum. It's a growing number of very significant pensions being paid to senior grades whose pay rocketed up in the war for talent, you know, to sort of improve the public services. Why somebody couldn't figure out that this would have an immediate effect on past service pension liabilities, I don't know, but no doubt someone will enlighten me. But I think Lord Hutton's interim report suggests that they've finally woken up to what's happened. I don't know whether you agree with that, but how would you encourage a more balanced approach to try and overcome this misconception and avoid the sort of them and us?
Right. Well, I think it's important first to say that we should not demonize either the public or private sector employees. I think both of them do a very good job, and both of them deserve ultimately a good pension and a good retirement. I think the issue here is about balance and sustainability of public sector pensions. And one of the big issues to be able to have an honest and open debate around this is that we need to have transparency of the real cost of public sector pensions, because ultimately it is the taxpayer who will be footing the bill. And this is why, very rightly so, taxpayers are concerned about the cost of public sector pensions. Now, it is true that there is, you know, your average public sector pension, you have on one side, you have very highly paid employees. But it is also true that public sector pensions might be lower sometimes because you also have people who have worked part-time in the public sector, or people who have worked for very few years in the public sector. And this drags the average down as well. In fact, the ONS has said that on one side, public sector pay is higher than private sector. And if you include, as the Institute of Fiscal Studies did, you include pension on top of the salary to create a total reward package, then you'll see that public sector pensions are 12% on top of that reward package, while in the private sector it's only 5%. So there is a debate to be had there about, on the one side is a misconception around all public sector employees are badly paid because the average is low. There are reasons why that average is quite low, and is, as I've said, part-time and short-term employment. But it's also like saying that, you know, ultimately the sustainability of the public finance and sustainability of the money put in by the taxpayer, which a lot of them might say, well, I work very hard in the private sector, I have put money into my pension, etc. And at the same time, my taxes are being used to pay for public sector pensions that might not be sustainable in the long term. Why have there been some reforms in the private sector but not on the public sector? And I think that is a key question to be had there. And I think Lord Hutton very rightly says in his report, and he acknowledges that there is a need to have an honest debate. And I think the CBI is ready to have that debate. And we have to talk around how much money is being put by the public sector employees, and what is the real shortfall in the public sector schemes at the moment.
There's a great danger in averages. You've talked about average pensions and you've used some average statistics. Very few senior executives in the private sector have the same pension rules as their staff. And I think that that's a debate that should be opened up. What do you say to that?
I mean, I think we come back to the point that that is part of the overall debate. I mean, we have to look at public sector pension reform as a whole, because I think Lord Hutton was right to say that, and as you said, it's not the same a lower paid public sector employee as a highly paid public sector employee. They do the very different jobs, the salary are very different, etc. But ultimately, it is not just because of them that the system is, it's related to, in a sense, employee contributions. I mean, what we see here, for example, is that the government assumptions when it calculates public sector funding, they're very different. I mean, put an example, they use a 3.5% interest rate assumption to calculate how many contributions should be made by both employee and employer to public sector schemes. But it only uses a 1.8% when it's calculating the cost. So what you have is quite a significant shortfall between how much money is being put in and how much money is really needed. Now, that shortfall means that, for example, in 2007 and 2008, on its own government's own figures, it shows that public sector employees accrued £29 billion on pension rights, but only 19 billion were collected in contributions. Now we have a 10 billion shortfall in just one single year. And obviously that amount will grow as longevity increases and all the other issues we've talked before. So yes, it is an issue about maybe senior execs in the public sector may have to be treated differently, maybe lower paid, and I think Lord Hutton has been very clear that this is a big issue within his own line of thinking for the reform proposal he's going to put out there. But we have to look at the sustainability of the whole system, because ultimately, yes, you have an issue within the public sector itself, but a taxpayer who might also be lower paid and working with and having had pension reforms then, are footing the bill for a system that is not sustainable in the long term, because the assumptions are not right. So we need to have an honest debate and an open debate around those issues.
Okay. Well, I do agree with you, but the TUC and the appropriate public sector unions have been winning bigger headlines than you, if I may say so, and a lot more public sympathy by playing the very straight card aimed at the lower paid public sector worker. It seems to me a desperate rearguard action aimed at protecting their pension, but then doesn't it actually seem like an open debate to me? So where do you sit on this?
Well, I think that, I mean, again, I think the debate is being had in the sense that Lord Hutton is putting a report out there. I think it is not right to try to second guess what he will be saying in 6-7 months from now. And we have an interim report which we believe sets out the foundations for that honest and transparent debate we need to have. So we will say that we need to see what the independent commission is going to say so we can have a debate around this. Yes, you can have sort of a public debate at the moment, and I think the CBI has put a couple of reports in the last 2 years around this issue of transparency costs and around government assumptions, and we have put forward our proposal for notional defined contribution. But we would like to see Lord Hutton's report before we can really say where the government wants to go in terms of reform.
Okay, so I need to come back and interview you in 6 months' time,
Absolutely.
it seems to me. All right, well, I hope the TUC and the unions are listening to your plea for a reasoned debate, but we'll go and ask them and get their comments. Thank you for your time, Mario.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the debate, and we look forward to your feedback as always. Goodbye.